Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, good morning, bonjour, hola. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Ken at 10. How are you today? Monday morning. We like a Monday morning here. How are you? I hope you're well. If you haven't been before, this is Ken at 10 because I'm Ken. It's 10. We're James Alexander Estate Agents and we broadcast daily about all things property. And today we're going to give you a few top tips to sell your home as per our blog. Thought you might like that. And as usual, talking about all the property news topically and what's going on here in Southwest London. It's a typical, I feel like I've said this every day for the last couple of weeks. It's kind of bright. It's a little grey. The sun is out though. And it's kind of a nice crisp day really overall. So yeah, happy with that. Hope you're happy too. Just about to do our sales meeting. One of the things about Monday mornings, what we do first of all is feedback. So that we're calling everyone that viewed over the weekend and we're checking what they thought of the houses and flats that they viewed with us over the weekend. So what you tend to find is that on a Saturday, people aren't really ready to discuss. They've got several viewings to do. But on a Monday, they've had a chance to reflect. And many will give you frank, sometimes too frank feedback. And barring swear words, we like to pass that on to our clients because we think it's really important that we're singing from the same hymn sheet as our client. In other words, if somebody says they hate the garden or they hate the fence or they hate the grey pathway, whatever it is, then it's important that we share that feedback because it might be something that we can jointly address, or they may have a solution we haven't thought of. So we look at it as a kind of teamwork thing where that feedback, even if it's negative, can help us do two things. It can help us, one, establish whether the buyer can find what they're looking for within the price range they're looking for locally. And two, it can help us establish how they feel our property compares in the marketplace. Is it one of the best they've seen? What did they like about it? What did they hate? So we can gauge a picture of where they feel it sits in the marketplace compared to everything else they've seen. Because that's a critical thing, isn't it? When you're buying a property, you want to know how it compares with others and you want to make sure that you buy the best one. How do you do that? There's only one way, and that's on comparison with what else is available. So one of the open questions our staff always ask clients is, how does it compare with the other ones you've seen? So we can gauge it against the other ones around, what's the best one you've seen? Why are you moving? Asking these open questions helps us to drill down, A, whether we're asking a competitive price, which is really important. And we usually are very competitive on price. And B, whether we can help this person, whether they're being realistic in their expectation. Do they want the 25-metre pool for £200,000? Well, here in London, it's never going to happen. So we need to establish what they expect for their money and whether that's right. And, sometimes you don't have to be rude, but you can just be honest with people and say, look, I'm sorry, but in this area, you're not going to get that. You will get X and Y, but maybe you won't get the 200-foot garden in your price range. Would you consider something that doesn't have that, but is a semi-detached rather than the terrace you've asked for? These are kind of things we're looking to work around and try and get people's head around perhaps other ideas, other alternatives. If you can't find what you're looking for, where you're looking for, you only ever have two alternatives. Other areas or lower your sites. They're the two options. More money is the third option, but of course for most of us the money is the money, right? Right, let's talk through some top tips to sell your home this winter. We just thought this is something we've been doing on the blog and we thought you might find it useful just to talk through what you can do to help sell your home this winter, because people think of winter as something where it's hard to sell things, but just a few basic pointers can really help get you in the right direction. So first of all, let's talk about styling your home for the season. Now, colder weather, shorter days, longer nights mean that you need to create a cozy atmosphere. Soft furnishings and accessories, replacing light cushions and throws with heavier fabrics and deeper colors, pillar candles, storm lanterns, great focal point for a coffee table, that kind of thing. And scented candles are always great, cinnamon, spice, pumpkin and orange, that kind of thing. So that's in terms of working with the season. And of course, going with that, light, warmth and brightness. In the winter, the lighting will be, especially in the evenings now where it's a little bit darker, where most people will be viewing, you don't want your one to be the dark house, do you? So it's really important that you think about light. So how do you do that? Well, a number of things. Pull back the curtains, make sure the blinds are fully rolled up, and clear windowsills of any objects that might be in the way and blocking out light. Another thing to consider is how you could change the lighting to show off the room. Perhaps invest in some higher wattage light bulbs. That's a simple way to do it and fairly cost-free, really, or certainly cost-effective. And I think another way is to have plenty of lamps and just add a welcoming glow to the property, you know, try and get that feel right as people walk into the house. Now, the other thing to think about is your garden. Now, most people in the winter, they ignore their garden because they think, well, the garden's something that you show off in the summer. But actually, to a buyer, that garden's really important. They're still thinking, could I have my barbecue there in the summer? And too often you look out in the garden and it's a total wreck. It doesn't have to be, you know. It's worth clearing up, getting rid of those leaves, cleaning off the paths, jet washing those patios, show it in its best possible light. After all, if you had a car, you'd wash it before you showed it, wouldn't you? If you were selling it? Same thing with a house, really. So what else can you do? There's a huge range of options from lighting. You can have strings of fairy lights, which always look pretty in the winter, stakes for lawns and borders, spotlights for pathways. All the solar powered things these days mean no wiring, and you can even take them away if you want, you know, when you leave. Or you could add maybe a fire pit. What's a nice thing, I think, you know, in the winter, light up that fire pit for your viewers. It's a lovely way to impress them with your winter garden. So the other thing that's really important is photos. Now, one of the things that I always see is people with summer photos of a house they're trying to sell in the winter, and it looks a little bit odd, doesn't it? So getting those photographs so that they're more winter-centric can make a difference. The problem is that we don't want to seasonally depict it out of the place that we're selling it. In other words, you know, one of the things to watch for instance, and this is quite a good example of that, is Christmas. I know we're coming up to Christmas. Some of you will be celebrating already. Personally, I think it's a bit early for that. But if you are putting decorations, that is too specific. You don't want people to see your home with Christmas decorations, because blink, Christmas will be gone and everyone will be saying, look at that house that was on the market before Christmas. Never put Christmas decorations up when you're having photographs taken for sale. It's always a mistake. Take away all evidence of Christmas. Doesn't mean you can't have some rich and deep and bright colors to make it look fresh and fine. But I do think if the photos were taken in the summer, you need to think about that. What else have we got? So we talked about the garden. Exterior maintenance is the other thing. A lot of people in the winter ignore the exterior maintenance because it's hard, isn't it? Getting out there with a brush and everything. But I do think it's very important. Again, with exterior maintenance, we're talking about things like painting. One of the most overlooked points when selling is your front door. You know, many people, they'll think about the house as a whole, but they don't think about the front door. The first thing they're going to see when they look at your house, your front door, probably in your online advert, certainly when they walk to your door. You want that door to be pristine, shiny, and it may need a repaint. Why not do it? The tips I'm giving you, they're low value. They're not going to cost you a lot of money, but they can make the difference, you know. And with property, when you're selling, there will be competition if you're asking to get the best possible price. And these tips are there to try and make sure that yours stands out against the competition, which is the all-important thing. So remember, keep paths free of leaves and snow, that kind of thing. Make sure drains are clear so rainwater soaks away and isn't building up. When it's icy, salt the driveways and paths. A little bit harder to keep it maintained, I know. Also, when people walk in, make it warm and welcoming. Somewhere to put coats and shoes and hats and things as they walk in. So it doesn't feel immediately like, oh, well, there's a storage issue here before we even start. You know what I mean? You really do need to think about that too. And then finally, talk to your agent about strategy. Winter strategy is important. Scheduling viewings is more important than ever, because you don't want them coming in at all times, because it is harder to present well in the winter. So what we like to do is stage more than one viewing, never more than one at a time. We always schedule them after one another, giving people just enough time to look around, but also letting them know, ding dong, there's another viewer. You've got to step forward and make your best offer if you want this one. So really important to talk to your agent about getting that scheduling right and making sure they're doing the best for you when it comes to that. Now, let's get into some property news for the day. Property experts are commenting on the run up to Christmas in the market. Everybody starts to talk about the statistics, don't they? And the Express talks to property industry experts about what we can expect. And the CEO of a specialist conveyancer called Move, with a U, believes that Santa will not be delivering a drop in house prices for Christmas. It's simple demand and supply, he points out. He points out that the house buyer demand is running at 28% higher than the 5-year average, while the stock is 38% lower. Now, that's what we've been saying for a while, isn't it? That we've got fewer buyers, but we've even got fewer properties, and therefore the market is still underpinned by that very much so. When it comes to interest rates, there's still uncertainty about the effect this will have on prices over the coming months. Chartered Surveyor and Director at Goodmove says mortgage rates are currently super low, with many lenders offering sub 1% mortgages, which in turn increases demand for properties. Well, it's true, actually. There are still some, I know that there was talk about the rates going up. They were held, and they're held for at least a month. We know that for a fact. My suspicion is they'll go up in February. There is another MPC, Monetary Policy Committee meeting in December, but I don't think they'll give us that for Christmas, would they? Surely not. That would be the Scrooge thing to do. I think we'll probably see the rate start to increase, albeit very slowly and from a very low point in February next year. And that may have a braking effect on the market. But by the same token, at that point, we'll be coming into the spring selling season, which is always the most popular time to move. So that should be balanced by that, hopefully. He adds inflation is expected to rise above 4% by the year end, which will make home loans more expensive. The reason he says that, of course, is that when inflation goes up, so the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee looked to raise interest rates to counter inflation, and that could slow demand for properties, he says. Photos could make or break a sale. Well, yeah, isn't that the truth? And this is an article from The Express saying that the images are the most influential aspect of any property when it comes to selling. And this is why I'm saying earlier on in my top tips for you that presentation has got to be tip top, as good as you can do. You know, you don't have to spend a fortune, but it's worth working on to make the effort to make it right. Aside from that, apparently we need loads more space for these battery factories. And the targets are not here in London, mostly the northeast and South Wales, because they'll need, believe it or not, 2,500 acres of land for these gigafactories producing batteries for cars. Lenders could go under among the cladding crisis, says the Mail. Nationwide is the first lender to say the $5 billion fund is below the amount required to end the scandal and expects property values to be severely affected for several years. Well, we've been saying that for a while now. And then it goes on to another awful story about a paralysed man who says he's trapped like a prisoner in a first floor flat he can't sell because of the cladding crisis. He's a former bus driver who was injured in a cycling accident, and he's been hit with £100,000 bill to fix property defects in his property in Cygnus Court in Croydon. £100,000, gosh, that's right here in Croydon. He's dashed his hopes of moving to a bungalow in Kent that will be more suitable for his needs following a life-changing crash in 2018. Mr. Crane says he's been living like a recluse since the incident, and his home has not been adapted for his wheelchair, making cleaning and washing difficult. Mr. Crane is on Universal Credit, could only afford to buy it by selling back 40% of his property to the Housing Association. So, poor man, having put all the work in to buy it, he then has to sell it back to the very Housing Association he bought from. Awful. My heart goes out to him. And many others, actually, in this awful crisis. So, apart from that, one of the things that we haven't had for a while is a quote of the week. And I do like a bit of a quote, don't you? Something fun about a good quote of the week. And this is one I found this week that I thought was quite fun. Quote of the week. Here we go. Dear optimist, pessimist, and realist, whilst you were busy debating whether the cup was half full or half empty, I drank it. Yours sincerely, the opportunist. And with that thought, I'll leave you. Have a fantastic day, and we'll be back tomorrow with another Ken 10. Till then, stay safe, look after your family and friends. Ciao.